Okay, abusia be makwa ba sonko so edeba POG Media so abusia yembonra yensemu no national security attract one of the ECG missing containers ewo western region abusia containers no emunuoma no cables meters ne ECG equipment no abusia omakohunu wo uncompleted building bi mu any some warehouse bi ma abusia right now no national security for attract omonsa etumi aso enkofo a omeye behind ECG missing equipment ni ma abusia enye asam keto akra eno ne breaking news a ye de brem na western region and omukoko pie so a enye asam keto akra yente momre no mom yanko na yankonkoti ensima course na answer na ebeko no o ensem kan bi afa share comment section ni mu like na share ma afofron so ensa intumi enkabi aha POG Media so medamase.
Let's go to the western region and to the Ashanti region as well. That's coming up next because the national security has discovered suspected stolen electricity company of Ghana cables, meter boxes, and other materials in Takoradi in the western region. We ask, what exactly is happening? Does this have any link really to the ECG missing containers and the content in there? If you recall, after this announcement by the Energy and Green Transition Minister, John Paul, that over 1,300 containers belonging to the ECG cannot be traced at the ports, there's been subsequent discoveries of some of the containers in some parts of the northern regions, here in the Greater Accra region. The contents of the containers as well, some of them have been seen in the central region. Now we're hearing as well in the western region today, national security operatives in the western region have uncovered stacks of ECG equipment at two sites at Kansarato, a suburb in the center, that's the second-day Takoradi metropolis. This comes on the heels of this search for the containers, 1,300 of them, and its content belonging to the Electricity Company of Ghana, which have gone missing at the Tema ports. Well, what you're seeing on the screen right now, right, are videos that we received from our correspondent, Abraham Mensah, who was neck deep with the national security operatives earlier today when they made these discoveries. Exactly where did they find these cables belonging to the ECG, and have any persons been arrested or questioned for this? This is one of the discoveries they made. Boxes of meters in a room. But then that was not the only one that they found in the western region. Now, there was another discovery. What you're seeing on the screen is also another set of cables belonging to the ECG in a bush. This area, described by our correspondent as a bushy area with these cables belonging to the ECG. How did they find themselves in there? These cables we're talking about. Now, what did the national security say about this? How did they discover this particular set of cables belonging to the ECG? And who is answering questions for what you're seeing on the screen right now? These cables in this bushy area, abandoned essentially. Now, that's what's happened in the western region. Now, let's go to the Ashanti region, because we also just got pictures not too long ago about some cables belonging to the ECG, again found somewhere in the Ashanti region. We're going to tell you exactly where in the Ashanti region these cables were found and what the national security is saying about these cables found in the Ashanti region. So you see the difference in that. These are what you see, the conductors and some of these cables. Also in a bushy area in the Ashanti region. So what's going on? But let's lay the basis for this. Our men on the ground in the area who have been following this quite closely are close with enough information. Abraham Mensah is our correspondent in the Western region. He moved every step of the way with the national security operatives earlier today who found what we have just showed to you. And William Evansinkum is our Northern Bureau Chief heading our Ashanti Regional Bureau there. Thank you, gentlemen. Good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. Hello?
Good evening.
Great. Abraham, I can hear you. William, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. I'll start with you, Abraham. Now, with the videos we just saw there, you moved with the national security today. Now, talk to us. The first discovery you made with the national security, with the boxes in the room, where did this happen and who's responsible for what we just saw?
So at about 3 p.m. today, we received a call indicating an operation being undertaken by the National Security Operatives at Council Road. So this is just a few meters towards the Methodist Senior High School Annex in Council Road. And it is some suspected items of the Electricity Company of Ghana. If I should detail, we are speaking about single-phase meter enclosures, some switch fuses, electrical cables, about 7 bundles of them on the compound, and a few other electrical equipment that are purportedly to be used for meter installation and other extension works on behalf of the Electricity Company of Ghana. Upon investigation, the National Security Operatives uncovered that there was one gentleman who is the occupier of the building, Mr. Henry Appiah of Hedgemake Company Limited. Apparently, there were a few altercations because Mr. Appiah couldn't explain himself as to how he got to those items, but he got a bit of some rescue from a company purported to be the parent company that had subcontracted those works under the loss under the LRP program of the ECG.
That's the loss recovery program, right? Yeah.
Loss recovery program of the ECG. And according to him, this is a program being undertaken in Sekondi, Takoradi, and the Daboase enclave. So the ECG is fully aware about the work being undertaken by the company. The parent company here in question is MBH Power and Gas Limited. And the supervisor was being interrogated by the National Security Operatives. His name was given as Evans Latte. And according to him, he's gotten enough documentations about it. He did indicate that even the boxes that were under investigation had labels of their company on it. Yes, there are a number of them we saw with those labels, but there weren't enough evidence to point to the fact that some items belonging to the ECG were rightfully handed over to the company. He issued some way bills, actually, but there was nothing concrete enough to convince the National Security Operatives as to whether or not ECG genuinely had engaged the company for such works. So that was for site 1. For site number 2, they also had received intelligence through some neighbors within that enclave.
So
this is just about 20 meters.
Hold on a bit for me, Abraham. So the site 1 is the one that has the meter boxes and then the other cables we saw in the room. So this NBH,
Indeed.
yes, this NBH person, was he arrested by the national security, questioned, and has he been released? If so happened?
So they actually were to lead a team to their warehouse in Sekondi. Unfortunately, we followed them through to the Regional Coordinating Council at Sekondi, and there they were handcuffed for a couple of minutes and later released. The National Security Operatives tells us that they've handed the matter over to the CID, mainly to confiscate those items for further investigation.
I see. So now let's move to the second site. That's the where you went to find the cables in the bush.
Yes, there were 41 of them which were untouched, 41 fully coiled bundles of electrical cables, including fiber cables. These were aluminum and fiber cables. And there were also, angle iron bars, which mainly are used for power extensions, and a few other electrical equipment stashed in that bush. So there were 5 of them, which by every measure I could tell had been tampered with, either by thieves or by whoever brought in those items. Unfortunately, some residents who were there couldn't tell who those properties or those items belonged to, and who that parcel of land also belongs to. This is a matter of an interest to the national security, and they've promised to pursue that to its conclusion. So as it stands today, for those 41 drums of electrical cables that were found at the second site are to be confiscated for further investigations. They are yet to tell who brought in those items and even when they brought in those items, and to see how they could proceed with their investigation.
I see. Now, so you talk about these 41 full drums of these cables, and the people who are living in the area didn't identify who, or couldn't identify who came to dump them there. Any indication how long these cables have been there? Did the national security ask, and did they get any answers to those questions?
So I did put that to the national security operative, Mr. Tanko Nuhu, and he indicated that they are yet to know who brought in those items, when they brought in those items, and even to the fact that who owns that parcel of land. This is approximately a 2-plot size of a land in the middle of a burden, community in Cancer Road. It's quite a new site. So yes, we did question a number of residents in the area, but it appears they are a bit apprehensive to divulge any form of information, and I believe the national security will take this up further.
I see. And Abraham, stay with me, because William Evans Income is also connecting with us from the Ashanti region. And I showed you pictures as well of this other area where some cables belonging to the ECG were also found somewhere in the Ashanti region. Where exactly, William, were these cables found by the national security?
Well, so this was found at an uncompleted house in Kote, or at Kote. And I would describe the operation as a botched one, because whilst they were interrogating the ECG, an officer from the ECG came around, and according to an operative from the national security, he had convinced them that there was a documentation to this particular 125 drums of cable, and he has been asked to produce the documents tomorrow. So they had to abandon this particular operation. So that was the situation in the Ashanti region.
I see. So this is indeed confirmed that these cables belong to the ECG, but then again, it has some documentation covering it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So they've been asked to produce the document tomorrow.
I see. And we'll wait tomorrow. I know you're very heavy on this particular one, and so we're going to connect with you tomorrow for some more details on this. But we've got pictures of those cables as well that were found in this uncompleted building. Quite a number of them as well in that particular area that William Evans Income talked about. And Abraham, so did the national security give you an indication that it's an operation that they're going to continue, and especially because of what happened today, how swift this is going to be to ensure that people who might just now be moving to cover their tracks may be caught within their tracks, really?
So what I understood from Mr. Tanko is that they've been, dispatched to do a number of, search at some suspected areas, and based on some intelligence they would also receive from national and then from the Western region. So they are quite keen on, getting to the bottom of this particular matter and to any other suspected cases they may chance on. The other development to this whole story is that we got in touch with a reliable source at the ECG who confirmed that yes, indeed they have some contractual relationship with MBH power. However, they couldn't confirm the fact that they released some items that could end up with a third-party contractor at a private residence. So that is a matter of contention here with the national security. So the questioning processes concerning the safekeeping of these items, and then again, whether or not there could be any documentation to validate claims concerning the relationship between ECG and MBH, and then with MBH with the third-party contractor, which is Hedge Company Limited.
Abraham, appreciate you for this. Thank you so much for that detail. So these are men on the ground who are following all of this every step of the way. So stay with us here on TV3 and across all major journal platforms. Abraham Mensah is a correspondent in the Western region, and William Evans-Inkom in the Ashanti region. There are more questions that the national security is asking of these persons as to how these Electricity Company of Ghana cables found its way in the uncompleted houses, in bushes, as we have seen, showing you those videos, and then also in some of these rooms where the meter boxes, a number of them were found. Ben Boache is the director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy. So Boache, appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. I mean, after this announcement of these missing containers, it's either we wake up to the news of the containers being found somewhere, or the contents of the container being seen somewhere. What do you suspect is going on?
Yeah, Alfred, thanks. I mean, first of all, if those containers were actually imported into Ghana, what it essentially means is that the containers are here, or the items that were in the container are in the country. So we would find them in various warehouses for various applications. We do know that if there are cables, if you want to use the cables, the only thing you can do is to use them to extend electricity. And given that only few companies do that, people will have other uses for it. And that's why we've seen some of the goods, finding their way into aluminum smelters and being converted into billet. So to the extent that the containers are in Ghana, if we search, we'll find them in the country. And I'm sure that is what is actually happening across the country. What we need to find out is whether, it was through the auction process that got the goods into different hands, or through the port, some of the goods were smuggled out somewhat to the various destinations and locations that we are finding them at this point. But I would say that if they were indeed imported, then we shouldn't be surprised that they are found in many locations across the country.
Absolutely. That's for certain. But the issue here is where the content of these containers and the containers themselves are being found, isn't it? I mean, in warehouses, and then what we've seen tonight, some of the cables in bushes and uncompleted buildings. That's suspicious and concerning, is it not?
I think if the investigations kick in, or if they are already, I'm sure the security forces would need to perhaps engage the public for an extensive disclosure of where anybody may have cited some of these containers. At this point, my instinct would be that if you had these containers in your warehouse or in your home, you would be wondering whether you are the next to be visited by the security agency. So you may find people trying to dump them somewhere or quickly convert them before they are caught, handling, these consignments directly. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of them dropped in bushes and locations where you can hardly connect to individuals. But that also requires that we are swift in how we track down these containers, which should be possible. We should know who authorized the exit of any container and be able to track it down to wherever they may be, even if they are found in the bushes at this point. So I think we'll leave that to the security agencies, but to keep our eye on the ball to make sure that the promised investigation actually happens. And we're able to get credible information on where each of the containers actually went to, and be able to quantify what the loss to that extent is, from this. So for civil society, I mean, and the media, we have to keep our eye on the ball to track it down, engage the security agencies, get the bill of lading of all the containers, how they left the port, who are the ones who actually took possession of the containers before they left the port, and be able to do a decent job of tracking them down.
Right, but what we're saying, some of them also are procurements by the energy ministry, because we have a video, as we're scrolling, you'll see that inscription on one of the cables, at least, that we got on camera. It was a procurement by the energy ministry, and then some of them as well, the ECG, in the bush, the cables in the bush. What does that tell you?
We are doing a hard job instead of starting from the simple part. As I indicated, I mean, if you had these containers or cables with you, you would want to find a way to escape the law and also the security agencies. So I'm sure people are reacting and dumping them in the bushes. Let's begin by tracking the containers. I think that's the basic information we need at this point. When the containers terminated in Ghana, when they exited the port, that is data that should be readily available. And who took possession of those containers when they exited the port. The security agencies shouldn't go beyond this immediately. It will be good to track them if you get information where they are and be able to retrieve them. But what we need to be briefed, perhaps on a daily basis, is who took the containers out of the port. Was it auctioned to them or somebody smuggled them out of the port? We need to get those specific issues answered immediately, and then we can then zoom into locating them through the intel information that will be given from tracking how they exited the port. We begin to trace them to specific individuals who may have, purchased or taken possession through smuggling.
So you talk about tracing, because as you there's paper trail, obviously, as to who authorized the auction, who bought, and at what price these containers were auctioned, where were they moved to. But Samuel Dubik Mahama last week, the former ECG board.
And political highway, so national securities led by Richard Japa Omo NHS Atrakisa ECG missing containers and equipment in either our Western regional and Assam Ketwa. But I must say, Moje Pene Kokoti sa audio no and the MI aha POG Media so.